Peace. This is Wise for Wise Words Media, back at y'all for another round, fresh off a little vacay, and we're back at it. And no better way to deliver some good boxing news than to return and say that Puerto Rico has another one. And the three greatest words in boxing. And we heard that over this past weekend when Xander Zayas, one of Puerto Rico's most brightest shining stars in boxing today, accomplished the goal by becoming the WBO middleweight champion. He did this by defeating Jorge Garcia, who George Garcia came off of a big upset victory when he beat Charles Conwell. That was a major, probably upset of the year candidate, because nobody expected that to go down. And when he pulled that stunt off, it was like, okay, we may have a big player here in this division. But Zayas went to this fight well prepared. He was the aggressor in the early half of the fight. I've been watching Zayas for years, and I gotta say, every fight I see him fine-tuning his skill set. I see him adding things, taking away things that may not be conducive to him in the ring. You gotta love when you see that in a fighter. When every time you see them out, you see that they're adding something to their game, because it tells you that they're in the gym constantly, they're constantly working, and they're watching film, they're listening to their corner. These are all the makings of somebody that can become one of the, a pound-for-pound fighter, and potentially a great, when they do all of these things. And you see the fine-tune adjustments, because every fighter, every fighter has struggled. They've had fights where they struggle. It's about making those fine-tune adjustments. When you don't make those adjustments, that's when those mistakes haunt you. They follow you, and you're gonna come across somebody that's going to have you scouted and make you pay for those mistakes. But Zayas, you can see he's maturing. He's still super young, and the second half of the fight, though, I felt like he took his foot off the gas a little bit. That's one thing he may not want to do in the future, because as we know, one of the most famous case in points is Oscar De La Hoya versus Felix Trinidad. If you're not the aggressor or effective aggressiveness, right? If you're not not only just the aggressor, but you have to land some good clean shots, at least some good clean shots, so that even if it's close, the judges can be like, all right, he did win the first half of the fight. He won at least 1 or 2 rounds in the back half. So you might get that decision right there. Even if it's a tough decision, they'll probably go your way. But in any event, congratulations, Xander Zayas. We have another one for Puerto Rico, another world champion. Our little island continues to be one of the greatest islands in boxing history. One of the greatest countries in boxing history. Puerto Rico's in the top 5 with most world champions in boxing history. So that's something to be extremely proud of. And what's next for Xander Zayas, man? You got a lot of business out there. You got guys that can crack up there. You got your Terrence Crawford, King of the Hill, who says he will be returning to 154. You have what's the name? Guys like Virgil Ortiz. You have Sebastian Fundora. So there's some guys up there. 154 is one of the most loaded divisions in all of boxing. One of the most stacked. You know, you got a guy like Tim Tszyu, who may have something to prove, you know. He's still got one more in him. I don't think he's written off yet. You got Jamel Charlo, who hasn't been in the ring in a couple years, but still, you know, can't fall asleep on his talent. And now you have the recently moved up, which I just heard the WBO is planning to make Jerron Boots Ennis the #1 contender for Xander Zayas' belt, which Xander Zayas is Zayas versus Boots Ennis would be an incredible fight. Zayas is the naturally bigger guy. He's been at the weight division longer. Ennis is just he'll be making his debut. You know, he'll just be moving up. So this will be an interesting fight, man. Interesting bout. We'll see if Zayas brings the pressure to Ennis, who is the smaller man going into this fight. But Ennis is super skilled, so Zayas must be careful. So that would be a great fight. That'd be a great fight. Bob Arum has reported that he wants to make that next title defense, he wants to make that in Puerto Rico, like a coming home fight. And, you know, boxing has a funny history with them coming home fights, man. Them homecoming fights be funny as hell in boxing. Those things can go bad. They can go south real fast. We've seen a lot of examples of that. But, you know, Xander Zayas, I believe he's one of the true champions. He's one of the old school hearted champions that's willing to take on any and everybody. And I'm waiting to see who he's going to take on next. That's going to be a great fight. But for now, Puerto Rico, enjoy. We got another one. Whoop, whoop. I'm Waz for Waz Words Media. Peace.